Hi and welcome back to Joe Talks Cars and welcome to another video. In today's video I'm going to be comparing my manual Golf to the alternative that is the DSG gearbox. Which of the two cars is better? Why would someone choose a manual like I have over a DSG? Of course this car, when it was launched, came with the two gearbox choices. The DSG was something new at the time and people raved about it. The speed in which it can change gear is totally next level. So when I was looking for a Golf GTI, although I did consider the DSG, I went for a manual. And in this video I wanted to talk about why. And in my opinion there is no better place in the world to drive a manual Golf GTI than the Scottish Highlands. We're here up in Scotland on a family holiday and I'm just having a little drive about in the Golf on these amazing roads. But these roads aren't without their faults. A lot of them are single file, there's lots of pull-in places, but generally they're not somewhere where you can push a car really hard. You're not after all-out performance, you're after a decent level of performance, but also just a bit of fun. I think that's where the manual gearbox comes in. Now as you can see, some of these roads are pretty narrow, pretty windy. There's not a lot of traffic on them, however, but it doesn't mean that you're not going to have lots of fun in a manual car. So as you smash through the gears on this manual Golf GTI, it really does remind you why manuals are just so much fun. I often get criticised on my channel because people say I'm not a proper driver, and with me driving an automatic Porsche, it's not really a driver's car. Like, it's the lazy man's choice, it's not as quick, not as fun or engaging. This, however, is my other car. And I have to say, I absolutely love driving it. And on these roads, it just makes sense. This, however, is one of the nicest manual gearboxes I've ever used. It's a 6-speed manual, it's got a really nice weight to the clutch, and a really satisfying clunk when you change gear. The one thing I do find with cars is when you are traveling at slower speeds, such as these roads are 60 miles an hour, but you can't exactly go very quickly. There's only a few stretches where you can. You can hold on to third, which this car sits really nicely at on these roads. And yeah, it's just so much fun to throw it around in like third gear. It's constantly on boost. The car sounds fantastic and it just works together in perfect harmony. This has to be one of the most engaging manual cars I've ever driven. And I've driven a lot. The last time I drove a manual car as good as the one I've got is the GI Yaris. And that is very huge amounts of praise for the Mk6 GTI, because when you consider how much you can pick these up from, it's in a different ballpark to the GI Yaris, and it is literally just as engaging. Front wheel drive, 210 horsepower and a manual gearbox on these Scottish roads. What more could you possibly want? Driving on these roads with the manual gearbox is super engaging, more engaging than an automatic of any description. It doesn't matter how good that gearbox is, this car offers engagement like no other. Being able to hang on to the right gear at the right time, knowing you've got a hill coming up or a very sharp bend, nothing quite beats it. Like I said earlier, I don't think I've driven a manual car quite as good as this one, so it stands to reason that this is a good car to pitch against a DSG equipped car. If only we could drive along here and find a DSG equipped car to maybe compare it to. Oh, there's one just here. How convenient.
It's 16 minutes to 5. We should be doing the headlines soon, but we can just squeeze...
Yeah, we just got one here as a text in from Sophie in Guildford. She says programs like Top Gear effectively promote fast which are responsible for so many deaths and accidents. Bring back Richard and Mark. Who? Never heard of them.
Welcome to the Skoda Octavia VRS DSG. That was very lucky finding this at the side of the road, and with the power of editing I was able to switch straight into it. Now this is going to be a really good comparison. One's a manual, one's a DSG. These cars are about as similar as you are going to get because they've both got a 2-litre engine, 2-litre turbo engine, producing similar horsepower, and they're both front-wheel drive. So it's a really good test to see which one of these is the best car for these type of roads. Now, when it comes to DSG, without doubt, and any automatic for that matter, in town, you can take a DSG or an automatic any single day of the week. So much easier when you hit traffic, and when you do spend most of your life sat in it, then it just makes sense to have an automatic for daily use, daily driving and all that. But when it comes to these sort of things, fun twisties, single file, what does it actually compare to? What is it like? And would I choose it over a manual? Specifically that particular manual. Initial impressions on these first few bends that we've come to. Now, I've spent quite a lot of time in automatics and DSG cars, and they all behave very similar. They do tend to pick the right gear, especially the latest DSGs like this one. They're pretty much faultless in that respect. And even if they do pick the wrong gear, one quick stab of the throttle, and the pickup is immense. The gear changes are lightning fast. They're faster than anything you can do with your hands. And obviously compared with something like a Tiptronic, they're just next level. The technology is vastly different and it just works beautifully with the car. This gearbox really does suit this car. It's a big car, big estate car, and it suits the more lazy automatic approach. I don't know if a manual would work well in this. The other thing that you can of course do with these cars is start pressing the paddles. What this will do is basically act like a normal manual, but instead of having a clutch and a gear stick, you just got paddles. And I'm just going to test it out on these next few bends and see if it kind of works and adds a bit more fun to it. I mean, it does let you select the gear you want. There's no arguments there. The car isn't going, actually, I don't think you want second there. You're not having it. It doesn't do that. It literally lets you drop it into whatever gear you feel like, and it just lets you go with it. Does it add engagement? No. It doesn't add any more fun or engagement to the drive, in my opinion. You can change gears with buttons all you like, but nothing beats the manual feel. This doesn't make it feel like a manual, and if I'm honest, I would never use the manual gears on this. I do in the Cayman, but that's because the Cayman sometimes is a little dim-witted and won't put it in the right gears, and sometimes I want to just lock it in third and just hammer it around. I'm pretty confident with the DSG gearbox that it always selects the right gear. It selects it right and it selects it quickly. You never needed to touch these paddles. And when you do, they don't really add anything to the driving experience, in my opinion. The gearbox is that good, you don't need to interfere with it. And that sort of takes away some of the engagement. So when it comes to drives like this, the main advantage I would say with the DSG over a manual would be the fact that there are oncoming cars all of the time. You're constantly pulling in, constantly having to think about what's coming up, what's ahead, the hills, the different corners. None of these roads are very easy to drive on. They're all quite twisty, quite technical. And with the auto gets on with it and allows you to concentrate on just braking, steering, and keeping an eye out for anything coming. It means the driving experience is easier, more relaxing, and I do feel that you could probably cover a bit more ground more quickly with a DSG equipped car. The other advantages with these cars is, of course, the fuel economy. So fuel economy in this is sitting in the high 30s. The Golf gets nowhere near that, and a lot of that is the age of the car, of course. This is the newer version, similar engine, but it's all new. And but the automatic gearbox does come into it. DSGs do give you better MPG. They give you better performance, better MPG. Overall, they are a better thing to choose. But when it comes to driver engagement and fun, if that's what you're after, then this isn't what it offers. The DSG doesn't offer that. I really do think it numbs the car. It makes it feel very, very digital. One thing I do find with DSG cars, and automatic cars in general, especially the DSG, is they lack any sort of personality. They're all very much the same, they all drive very similar. I've driven a lot of cars over the past few years. Cupras, and Golf Rs, this, a few Golf GTIs with DSG boxes, they all feel very similar. They're just obvious when you get in them what they're going to be like. The gearboxes behave exactly the same and they're almost too perfect. For a car to have a personality and offer something different and make you like love the car, it needs to have faults. The gearbox in this is just too perfect. So you don't have to think about what gear you're in currently. Like, I don't have a clue what gear I'm in. I've not looked. I'm not bothered. Because I know when I get to this corner and I brake, the car will do something, maybe drop a gear, might not. But either way, I'm going to have plenty of power on exit. It did, it dropped 2 gears then. Right, so in conclusion, which out of the two should you pick? Should you go for a DSG or should you go for a manual? Well, I've tested both these cars thoroughly on the roads around here in Scotland, and I have to say they both have their merits. One is clearly better than the other, and it's probably a little bit of bias on my part. The Golf GTI, in my opinion, with its manual box, really suits these roads, for a number of reasons, main one being engagement. That car comes alive in your hands on these roads. The DSG, however, is so much simpler to use, and on these roads where you're constantly stopping because of cars, an automatic is probably what you need. So although this video has been a little bit of a comparison, I haven't really got a conclusion on which one you should pick. The DSG has so many advantages over a manual, but the manual is just more fun. It all depends on what you use the car for, but in particular on these roads in Scotland, I'd take the Golf with the manual gearbox every single time. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this rather impromptu video. If you have, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already for plenty more videos like this one to come. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.